All right, welcome back on Record Podcast. I am joined now by CBS 6's here in Richmond, Virginia, Matthew Fultz. Mr. Fultz, how you doing?
Doing good, Darnell. Thanks for having me, man. Been a long day so far, but we're getting it done.
Yeah, we're recording this about 1:30 in the afternoon. So right about now, you're just getting off of work. You work the morning shift at CBS 6. I mean, you've been there, 2.5 years roughly?
Yeah, 2.5 years. It'll be 3 years in January. And the time has flown by. It really has.
And how long had you been on that morning shift? I know you weren't always on it.
Yeah. So I hopped on earlier this year around January. Excuse me. Sorry, I got a burp. But
we caught Matthew during his afternoon meal.
I know, midway through. Excuse me, sorry. But yeah, I started in January, so it's been roughly a year or at least will be in October, 10 and a half months so far on it. And it's been fun.
Before then, you were Nightside, so you were working like the 3 to 11 shift or 3 to midnight whenever you get off work, correct?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'd sometimes come in like 2:30, stay as late as like you said, midnight or 12:30. So that it was a big change because I was used to working Nightside basically my entire career up until this point.
What was that switch like for you to go from working the evenings? Because you work two, I don't want to say unconventional, but the typical workday for most people, 9 to 5, 8 to 5, whatever that is. You're working at the end of the day. Now you're working at the absolute beginning of the day. What was that switch like for you? And what were some of the things that you had to do to adjust?
Yeah. So, for me, it was going from Nightside to mornings it was a big change. I remember when they first approached me about it, I was kind of nervous because I'm like, first thing you think of is like, oh man, I'm going to miss out on so much social activity, having to go to bed at like 7 or 8. And so I was really nervous about that, and trying to go to bed that early. That was the hardest thing because, I'm so used to most of my life being, staying up till 2, 3 a.m. and sleeping until like, maybe 9:30 or late as 11:30. So for me, the biggest thing was, just getting used to that sleep cycle. When I first started, it was almost like, 2-3 hours of sleep. I remember the first night, I think I tried to go to bed early at like 8 or 9 and woke up at like 1:30 and was up. I just couldn't go back to sleep. So I was up the entire shift. And so I had to get used to like using melatonin sometimes, like on the first day of the week to kind of get my body into it. But, after a couple months, you kind of get used to it. And surprisingly, I enjoy it, I don't feel like I'm missing out on much when I go to bed, like, as early as 7. It's kind of just like, okay, cool. And you wake up and you kind of catch up on what happened in that short amount of hours. But I liked it, I do like it. And it's surprisingly pretty. I'd say if I had to pick a favorite shift, it'd probably be that out of all of them, surprisingly.
And I think like I work mornings too at a TV station as well. I feel like working in the mornings, you got people there who are basically at the same schedule as you, getting up 2, 3 in the morning, coming to work. But
Yep.
It's much more of a family vibe in a sense, because as much as it might suck in a sense to wake up that early, you all go through it together and it makes it easier to get through. Is that kind of an accurate statement to make?
I'd say so, yeah. Because I mean, like a lot of the people at work, we're all coming like, oh man, I'm so tired. Or sometimes they'll be like, yo, what time you go to bed last night? And they'll be like, oh, I went to bed at 9. So I'm like, okay, I'm not the only one hurting right now. So it's definitely a family environment. And I think that's the way for a lot of shifts, for all shifts. But I think it's more special for mornings, like you mentioned, because it's just that shift no one wants to work. The average person doesn't want to. So it kind of makes you feel like, we're a little special.
And then also the difference in work days, because when you're coming in at 3 in the afternoon, 2:30, 3 o'clock, you're in the heart of the workday at the TV station. People getting ready for the main shows, which is nowadays 4, 5, and 6. You all have a 7 o'clock show as well. But then coming in the mornings, you have the 4:35, 6. What's the difference in terms of the work pace that's going on from 3 in the afternoon to 3 in the morning?
Yeah, so great question. So Nightside, that's what we call 3 to 11 Nightside. That's when you come in. Most of the time you have an editorial meeting at like around 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock when you have your editorial. And that's the pitch meeting with all the producers and reporters. And so what's that happening is you're kind of relaxed still. You pitch your story already. You send me your emails earlier, maybe around like 1 o'clock. So you can kind of come in thinking you're going to have a relaxed day. You already set up all your stuff, or it could be like, boom, time you come in. Hey, we just had breaking news. There's a fire or something crazy just broke nationally. We need you in the early shows now where you got to like, hey, you're in the 4, maybe the 5, 6 o'clock where you're gathering elements, presenting them live as they come in. Or it could be like one of those situations where it's like, hey, you come in, I don't have to be at my story until maybe 5 o'clock. I got an hour or two to kind of relax, maybe do some more research on something like that, and then kind of take your time putting together one story for the 11 o'clock news. Versus morning shift is where you kind of got to wake up, your producers email you, kind of say, hey, okay, we're going to have you working on XYZ, fronting this or what happened overnight, or maybe something that you gathered early in the week, kind of put it together. And so you're kind of doing it backwards. You're coming into work hitting the ground running right away because you have about an hour and a half to kind of write your script, pick what you want to get, your sound bites for the 5 o'clock hit. Because for our shows, we use the reporters come on at 5 and 6, and you do 4 hits. So you're kind of doing it. You're kind of becoming an expert really quickly in whatever you're fronting that morning. For example, it could be COVID booster shots for Pfizer that recently got approved. And so you might be like, okay, I have no idea. I didn't hear anything what happened on it, but it broke overnight. So okay, I'm fronting this now. So you're kind of learning all that really quickly. And so it's a hustle and bustle for the morning, and then it slows down at 7 a.m. because you got that time from 7 a.m. in between 7 a.m. and the noon show to where you kind of got to put together another story and then go out and go gather your elements, write it up for the noon. So it's kind of like a backwards pace. You're doing a fast pace, then it slows down a little bit, versus Nightside where it's kind of slow, then it picks up as the night goes on.
And for you, luckily, you're getting a chance to do this all in your home market. You're from New King County, just to the east of Richmond. What has that experience been like to work at the station that you probably watched growing up as a kid, and seeing some of those faces that have been on for years, like Wayne Koval? He's still at the station. What's it like working there?
It's been a blessing, man. I tell you, it's I often think about it a lot. It's like you never in a million years would think it happened, but it's like something that you dream about. It's like you always thought, oh man, it'd be so cool to work with them, but you never think it could happen. But yeah, for me, it's just been like a blessing and an honor because I interned at Channel 6. It was a station that I kind of eyeballed and respected growing up and in college. So I was like, hey, I want to be able to come back and work there. And like you mentioned, those veterans, when I was in school, I used to see Rob and Reba. They're the 2 morning anchors that I kind of tossed back and forth to. I used to watch them on TV as a kid. So, to be able to, interact with them and work side by side is pretty awesome. And, just being able to have like my parents, my family members, relatives all in the area, friends, being able to, watch me on TV, people send me pictures, snaps, hey, there's Matt on TV. It's pretty cool, it's pretty cool and rewarding to be able to just do this, especially so early on in my career, because a lot of people I know in this industry, a lot of people are from big markets. And it's not as easy to, get to that hometown market as quickly as some others might be able to do. But it's definitely been a very rewarding experience.
You're working your hometown market. You're from New King County, just to the east. What was your upbringing like out in New King? Because we can tell you from New King. I hear that little country boy twang on you.
Yeah, people always joke with me about that. It was definitely fun growing up. Rural area. It definitely wasn't as popular as it is now. Newcamp's like one of the fastest growing counties in the state of Virginia right now, but it was fun, man. It was fun. Growing up, we, played a lot of video games. I didn't live on a farm or nothing like that. We actually live in a little suburb. People always think, "Oh, you from the farm and stuff like that." But we had a normal upbringing. Like me and my brother. I had one brother. He's 2 years younger than me. You know, we played video games growing up. Played basketball. I ran track. And when we got older, got to the point where we got 4-wheelers and dirt bikes and stuff, me and my friends, we'd all go, riding and call it riding, but riding and mudding with the 4-wheelers and stuff like that, get all dirty and whatnot. So it was just a good time. It's if you never experienced like rural country area back roads, it's something to experience, because it's what's the word? It's just a scene like no other. Growing up, just windows down, seeing the country air, back roads, cows, deer, swerving, watching out for the deer. It's just something that you don't get like if you grow up in the city and stuff, and vice versa.
Where did you want to go when you were growing up in terms of career field? Was being a reporter, being a journalist something that you always did? Were you one of those kids that watched the news all the time when they came on? And did you see yourself in that position?
Yeah, so I'm probably one of the few people that is like non-traditional with this answer, because a lot of times I'll read, people, reporters and anchors bios, and like, yeah, they knew from the age of blah 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 that they want to be a news reporter. I never had no interest whatsoever of being a news reporter. Growing up at least. For me, growing up, I played basketball. I grew up playing that. My dad played basketball. And so that was my heart and joy. So I always had dreams of getting to the NBA. I thought I was gonna make it. I thought I was pretty decent, but it didn't happen. And so one of the other avenues that I always thought about was, being on TV. I'd always thought, I was like, wow, that looks so cool, just being on TV or being an actor or being a television host. Because one of the shows I used to watch a lot was 106. I'm pretty sure you remember that 106 in Park on BET.
Mhm.
And I
You
used to,
watched the AJ and Free Days or Terrence Roxley? Did you have a preference?
yeah. So I watched Terrence and Roxy when they were coming up.
Okay.
And so that's kind of what caught my attention. It wasn't like I didn't watch it faithfully, but afternoon after school, I catch it on. There ain't nothing else to watch. Me watch it. And so Terrence, I always thought like, man, that is so cool what he's doing. It looks so much fun, looks easy. And so I kind of Googled him and looked at his bios on Wikipedia and saw like what he majored in. Said he majored in mass comm. And so I was like, okay, cool. That looks interesting. And so once I graduated high school, my parents was like, hey, you got to go to college. You got to get the education. I was like, all right, cool. So I went to J-Sarge Community College in Richmond. And for the first 2 years, then I transferred to VCU. But while I was there, it was the first semester, and I happened to be around the time that I Googled Terrence, and I was like, you know what? Because at first I put business, and I was like, you know what? I don't really want to, do business. I was like, and I looked somewhere online on the website and it said, so if you like social media or social studies, that's what the degree was called. This might be for you if you like, mass comm, social media, stuff like that. And I was like, hey, why not? So I switched my major to that, did all I had to do to get to VCU. Then once I got to VCU in the broadcast program, I was like, okay, let me follow that. It's broadcast TV. Why not? That's when I kind of really started to learn the craft of news, learn what news was about, how it was operated, the different organizations. And then, we go to Insight for the final semester of the broadcast program. And then, Colleen, our instructor, Colleen, she was like, hey, listen, you're really good. You're naturally good at this. You should stick with this. And then the rest is history. It kind of just, once she said that, I was like, okay, cool. And I kind of just, continue to research, continue to learn, and got my first job in Harrisonburg, Virginia. And now we're here. And so I think it was just, God's plan for me to go down this journey. And now we're seeing how far it'll take me.
And you said Colleen, we gotta give a shout out to Miss Colleen about
Oh yeah,
for the teachings that she gave us, her and Dr. B. But
sure.
she said to you that you're good at it. Where did it go off for you saying that, hey, I could legitimately do this? Was it her that said it, or was it maybe somewhere along the way where you truly realized that you could, hey, I can make a living doing this?
I think it was her, honestly, because up until that point, I kind of just, watched other people periodically. Okay, I think I can do that. Let me see if I can mimic them, to try to pass this course per se, try to just to pass the course. And then, once she kind of approached me that day, I remember like it was yesterday, her and Dr. B, they approached me, they said that. Then I was like, okay, maybe they're on to something. Maybe I should take this a little more seriously. And so I think that's once that happened, and then I put my reel together. She told me there was an opening at WHSB, and I applied, and the news director actually gave me a call back and was like, wow, okay, I guess this is something, I guess he obviously sees something in me. I think that's when it really hit me like, okay, this could be something, and then I really don't think it was until I got here, because even there it was like I had the confidence, but it still took me at least, 6 to 7 months to really get the hang of it. Because again, going back to it, a lot in this business, a lot of kids are already more advanced than other kids in this in your field. Obviously, some kids start in high school, some kids start writing, all through college. For me, I didn't really start learning any of this stuff until I got to WHSB, I kind of didn't really do my research, get a handle of it. And so I think that's kind of where it really hit me, like kind of like almost a year into things
And
at
I remember
WHSB.
and I remember being you were inside, it was the fall of 2015. I was in the other side of the course, the production side. So you and I got to interact. That's how you and I met. And I remember seeing you. You did have like a natural gift of gab when you were on the set. So I mean, it did seem like you were able to You definitely seem like you could definitely, at least from my perspective, you can make a living doing this. So going out to HSV, going out to Harrisonburg, Virginia, what was that like for you? It's probably at least maybe somewhat similar to growing up a little bit, except you had the big college town, JMU there.
Yeah. So yeah, it was, for me, it was a shock because so when I was in high school, we ran track in Harrisonburg High School for our state meets. But every time we went up there, I never really paid attention to the surroundings. I kind of just went to sleep on the bus. We got there, yada yada. And so when I went out there for the first time, I was like, hey, listen, because I passed the Stanton exit. And I was like, hey, that looks familiar. And I was like, wow, I put two and two together. I was like, wow, I actually been here before. But the Valley is a hidden gem. It was a shock, but not so much at the same time. It was a shock because there was so much just wide open land. Everything looks different there. When you're riding on the highways, the clouds look different, the open sky looks different. And I actually lived in Stanton because I worked in the Augusta County Bureau. So that was even more of a shock because the area itself isn't really geared towards young people. It's not like, hey, let's go out, there's a bar down the street, they're open till 3 a.m. There's a dance club, you know what I'm saying? It's not. And so I think that was the biggest thing of like, wow, okay, I'm really out here. I really had to make some friends or, find stuff to do outside of work. If I'm really gonna, survive in this without like that really social nightlife. But it was fun, it was fun. The people out there are one of a kind. Everyone's super friendly. A lot of the people, excuse me, that I met out there, I'm still friends with on Facebook to this day. And it was an experience that I never even could imagine happening, but it went well, thankfully. But it's a good area, If for those of you listening, if you've never been, I'd recommend taking a trip to the Valley, weekend trip.
And let's put this into context. You're one of the people that you were able to get a job right after you graduated from college. Some people have to, like work their way up, maybe take a behind the scenes job or something like that, or maybe work a part-time job to hopefully, try to keep their foot in the door so that way they can get to their spot. for you getting a job right out of college, I mean, what did that mean to you that, I mean, you were just able to, I mean, you say you didn't even have necessarily the background necessarily, at least starting out when you came into college, of wanting to go into journalism. You were able to do well in insight, got the job. What does that mean to you?
It meant a lot, because one, just in any field you go to nowadays, getting a job with a degree, just because you get a degree, don't mean you're gonna get a job. So, getting a job that quick, it really was like, wow, okay, this I'm very grateful for this, because I know a lot of my coworkers, I mean, not coworkers, a lot of my friends, aren't in the same position. So I was very grateful, and I was glad I didn't have to take too much time off, because I wanted my mind to still be fresh in what I was learning, and I wanted to still be motivated to go out and get this job. I feel like a lot of people, when you graduate, if you're struggling 5, 6, however months to get a job after college, you lose motivation quick. You start to like bring all these other factors in, like, okay, what's going to happen? So for me, it meant a lot. And I think it really helped me out and allowed me to succeed really well. And at first, I was a little nervous because it was a bureau position, so I knew I wasn't going to be particularly working with people hands on. So that it made me nervous, but for some reason, I was like, I got big dreams, long term goals in this field. I have to do whatever it takes to get to where I need to get to, and so I had that mentality at that point, and I think you know having that mentality, and also not being letting fear take over of a opportunity really helped me out.
And then one other thing for people so they can understand, working at a bureau, HSV, the actual station is in Harrisonburg, Virginia, which is in the heart of
Mhm.
Rockingham County. Augusta County is the county south, but at the heart of it, it's Stanton County. So while most of the people are in Harrisonburg, Stanton is about 30 minutes south down 81, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And just to put that in perspective, if people don't know where Stanton is, if you Google or ever heard of Mary Baldwin University, that's where Stanton is. And actually, our bureau for about a year of my time there was in Mary Baldwin University. We actually had a bureau set and everything, a WHSB studio set inside the library. It was like in a sealed off room, but we eventually moved offices to another building in Augusta County. So it was a lot of transition really quick. And for folks who don't know, again, you're coming out of school, you're in this field, you're basically becoming an MMJ, which is multimedia journalist, aka one man band. So you're having to do everything. You're having to write, shoot, pitch your own story ideas, go live by yourself. You're doing everything but tell the weather, pretty much. And so doing that right out of college, it can be pretty intimidating.
What were some of the stories that you got to cover during your time? Because you were there 3 years, correct?
Yeah, I was there 3 years, man, and it's been some wild ones. I remember one time covering this mountain fire that happened in Rafine, Virginia, which is a little south of Stanton in Augusta County. And I remember going up there, having to film, go live. I didn't go in front of the camera live, but I talked over the phone while I was filming like from a far distance. You could just see the flames lighting up the night sky. Um, I remember doing a story on a firehouse cat, a cat who was like, I want to say 20 years old, and it was a firehouse cat, and it got lost. And it turns out, I guess the cat had jumped onto one of the fire trucks when they went to a call, and just jumped off out there. And so luckily they found the cat, and I actually took a picture with the cat. Why are you laughing?
Just continue.
That's small market news.
I
Small
know.
market news for you. But but it was a good story. I enjoyed it. I'm trying to think what else we did. It was so many stories. There was a cool little three-wheeled. I'm not sure what it's called, but you ever heard of T-Rex or T-Raptors? It's like little two wheels in the front, one in the back,
Yeah.
type of little whatever you want to call it. I remember they had one of those at an event one time, and I got to ride in that. Um, did a little story on that, but it was a good place. Very good place. I was a beekeeper for a couple stories. You know, there was a beehive. You dress up as a bee man, film in the beehive. Those were pretty fun.
And I know, like, working on the other side of the mountain in Charlottesville, we used to sometimes hear some of the stories that came out of Harrisonburg and be like, and there would be some crazy stories, like just like the ones you just mentioned, but also some breaking news stories. I mean, like a fire or explosion that happened. So I think there was one that happened definitely in the city of Harrisonburg. It was an explosion actually that just
Yeah.
suddenly happened. Were you on that story?
Yeah. Is that the one you talking about last year?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was actually working here at Channel 6 when that happened.
Okay.
And I actually, yeah, because it was the biggest story of the day because I think it was an explosion that literally wiped out a whole strip mall section almost. And
That was
I
it.
remember I was down in Petersburg doing another story, and I remember they called me off and said, "Hey, listen, we got to send you all the way up there." So I had to stop what I was doing. I shot like this whole story, almost a package worth, and to go to the station, drop off that footage, and drive. Shoot, I think it was like what 2.5 hours all the way to Harrisonburg, and I had to go out there and cover it. Thankfully, no one was hurt. And I stayed up there all night, had to edit the package, and I got back in Richmond around 11:30 that night. So that was a long day, long day.
So your time came to an end at WHSB. You were there for 3 years. What made you decide to make the jump?
Yeah. So for me, obviously, you know, small markets, most people when they're in small markets, they only do about 2 to 3 years, most times. And so for me, I told myself, you know, I want to come out here, I want to do, you know, 2, 3 years, get my bearings and then be able to jump to a bigger market. And, you know, as I mentioned earlier, you know, I wanted to come back to Richmond to be able to work in my hometown market at Channel 6. And just I don't know. I think it was just grace of God, God's timing, where when I reached out to them, they had an opening and they saw they saw potential in me and they signed me on. And it was I still remember it like yesterday. I remember calling the news director Cheryl and us talking and they offered me and it was a really exciting time, really exciting time. But I had really set my sights on coming back to Richmond. I didn't really, traditionally a lot of people, they look at different markets across the country, send out your reel tape to like XYZ. I didn't really do any of that. I kind of just wanted to try to hone in on coming back to Richmond. And like I say, the good Lord looked out and it worked.
You didn't apply anywhere else?
No, that was so for me, like I say, I had during that time I talked with another station in Knoxville. And then like I said, I talked with Channel 6 and but like I said, this was like something that like you have to a lot of people that's if you're listening and if you're trying to build like connection, you have to like really, you can't just wait till last minute. You got to be in like talks with people, like you have to like reach out and constantly be in contact with somebody if you really want that spot, because and that's what happens a lot of times. A lot of people, if you don't get it on the first go around, something else might open up later on in your career at that same spot.
How did that time in Harrisonburg, help you as you were getting ready to make the transition to a bigger market to Channel 6?
It really helped me. It's funny because I was actually going to do 2 years, and I was and for some reason I was trying to leave. excuse me, after 2 years, but I didn't. Something didn't work out, so I ended up signing an extension and staying for the extra 1 year. And I think that 1 year alone helped prepare me for Richmond. I think it was just a good Lord looking out after me because what WHSV allowed me to do that extra year is I got to anchor, got to fill in anchor a lot. I got to do sports anchoring. I got to film a lot of football games. I got to tell a bunch of more stories. I got to produce. So what that allowed me to do was it allowed me just to expand my knowledge of the newsroom and just learn. And so I think all of that allowed me, excuse me, to become a better reporter, better broadcaster, and just digging harder into stories, trying to enterprise more hard hitting stories while I was out there. And just for folks who haven't anchored, just having that anchoring experience, it allows you to become a better reporter when you're out in the field, because it gives you that skill. Like, okay, I'm comfortable. I have more confidence. I can do anchoring. I can own this desk, and I can also go out there and own that stand up or own that whatever I'm doing out there in the field. And so I think that it prepared me in that sense, that I could really, just have that confidence to say, okay, I'm ready to go. I'm not like nervous. Oh my God, it's a bigger market. I'm nervous. You know what I'm saying? Because some people get that way. Somebody, okay, I got the job, but I'm still so nervous. Or some people might go to New York City or LA. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm here, but whoa, it's a fast-paced city. It's a fast-paced newsroom. So yeah, definitely, WHSB prepared me for sure.
And then after you got the job in Richmond, what was that transition like? Because Richmond is a much more, they go at a much more accelerated pace than I'm pretty sure Harrisonburg.
Yeah, it did. And I think one of the things, that helped me out was knowing the area, being from this area. And for me, one of the biggest eye openers was being able to work in an actual newsroom. Because again, I worked in a bureau. So I would occasionally go up to Harrisonburg and work with folks, but not daily. When I got to Richmond, I was like, okay, I got a photog. I'm riding with a photog. I'm in a newsroom where the hustle and bustle is going on. So it was nice, but it wasn't a total culture shock, because again, I interned at Channel 6. I worked there for a month after I graduated. And that's one reason why I wanted to come back to Richmond and work for that station, because I already knew the layout. I knew how things operated. I knew everybody in there. I knew their roles. So it kind of helped me out in a positive way. And so going back to the hustle and bustle, I knew it was going to be fast, but it's not too much of a difference from a small market. It's still fast paced. You got more traffic on the road, but and you got competition, but in the end, it's all the same thing. It's the same basic fundamentals. And if you know the fundamentals, you're good to go. Same thing for NFL or NBA. If you got the fundamentals, you'd be good to go.
What are some of your favorite stories that you've gotten a chance to cover in Richmond? Because I'm pretty sure that there's a wide range, because you got your breaking news, you got your political stories, school stories, and your feel-good stories. What were some of your favorite ones to cover?
Yeah, great question. There's been so many. I think one of my all-time favorites was one I did down in New Kent, my hometown. It was actually shooting my first 3 months here. They had I want to say it was a Night to Shine prom. I believe that's how they called it. But it was for the kids with special needs, students with special needs. And it was an awesome story. They got their own prom just for them. And it was really cool to be able to tell that story and to see it all play out and to see the feedback from my hometown. Some of the school leaders at that school still that knew me. Just seeing it come full circle was pretty awesome. And I remember when UVA won the Final Four, when they won the NAAC tournament. I got to go up there and do a story with them when they came back, and then that Saturday too, when they had like a little party as well, like the city do like a little party.
You and I were both there.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot because we went out to eat. Didn't we go out to eat? You, me,
Yeah, we went
Cole,
to
and Victoria.
I forget what place it was. It was
Sedona,
in
I
the middle
think.
of the shifts, but yeah, because there was also another reporter from I think SET in Lynchburg.
Yeah,
Which
Victoria.
the center of the world was in Charlottesville after they
Oh
won
yeah.
the national championship. So what were some of the other stories that were some of your favorites?
Oh yeah. I always give flustered every time. I always taught myself, hey, next time somebody asks me this question, I got all of them lined up. Then they ask me, and my mind goes blank. But I'm trying to think some of the other ones. Some of the other ones, just at CBS we do CBS 6 Gives, so giving back, we always surprise people. Some of those have always been my favorites. Just awarding people, doing good in the community. I remember this lady who works with a organization here in Richmond who kind of helps out the homeless. And I remember we surprised her, and she kind of like brought tears to her eyes. And just those stories of like, helping people out. I think like there's one story, um, gosh, I can't place it, but there was one story that we did, and a church was giving back for Thanksgiving, doing a Thanksgiving meal for the homeless down in Petersburg. And I remember that story. It was so funny because the opening section of the story was them like playing the piano and singing the choir and stuff like that. That didn't happen until we were about to leave, and the pastor kept playing the piano, and the whole choir just joined them. And it was just so awesome to see because we didn't really know where the story was going to go until they started doing that. It was like, yep, this is going to be the start of the story. So just small stuff like that has been pretty fun.
Last year, actually now 2 years, just about COVID, how has that impacted the way you all have been working?
Oh man, that's hit us hard like a ton of bricks. I feel like it's hit everybody hard. Well, for us, we, obviously like everybody else, quickly went to working remotely from home. Um, we couldn't ride in the cars together. Everybody had to drive separate cars. A lot of people weren't allowed in the building. And so it was just, you really had to, work remotely and really wipe everything down, be cautious about everything. When you go to interview people, we had to use like the long stick mics or set it up on like on a little mic stand, like a choir mic stand. So it really impacted, I think, a lot of people because it wasn't as easy to tell stories. What we're doing right now, we had to do a lot of Zoom. We had to learn to, adapt to things. But slowly as we're coming, vaccines are becoming available. Things are getting a little bit better. There are vaccine mandates in place. I know that's affecting different type of companies, but for the most part, vaccines, a lot of people are requiring vaccines now. I know for us, we're still wearing masks in the building. We put a pause on like, phasing people back in. So, kind of what you're seeing across the board for a lot of companies, just people still being cautious. I know a lot of people at our station still work remotely. For me, I kind of do like a hybrid, I'll go in the building if I need to, but still can work from home if whatnot. But I'd say we're kind of just all adapting, I think the mental wear has been the biggest issue on a lot of people, especially you got a pandemic plus all the racial, social tension that's been happening last year across the nation. I think just those two mixed together has just been a huge burden on a lot of people's mental health.
I want to be careful when I ask this next question, but you work in a business where information content is king. You're often disseminating information to the masses, the people that live in the Richmond area and beyond. How does the information that you all disseminate kind of get, what's the reception of it like? Because we live in a climate where a lot of things have been divisive. There's a lot of misinformation that I'm pretty sure that you all have to combat. What is that like, especially working now, especially during a time where we need such pivotal information at a time where we're in a pandemic? We need to just be able to live from day to day.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great question. Very great question. For us, for us, we're just always making sure we're double fact checking our stuff, making sure our sources are legit. A lot of times we're not, when it comes to COVID and stuff, we're not just going to take something that someone says, unless it's from the CDC, Virginia Department of Health, local health department leaders. So we're really careful in what we put out, especially when it comes to the health and guidance of people when it comes to COVID and vaccines and stuff like that. So, we're always having newsroom conversations, having, single, double, triple checks over scripts, stuff like that. Because you're right. You want to get it right, especially what we've seen the last, year or so with the fake news, especially social media, people just sharing whatever they want to share without really, looking, okay, this is an article from, newsorganization.org, some just random, website, instead of it being like, okay, is this legit? Is this from one of the major news networks, or is it just from some random site? And so, yeah, we're very careful, just making sure that, where the source is coming from. Is it double checked with like our sources, state, local police, PIO people, anything like that. We're always fact checking before we release something.
Have you yourself had to, like for a story, had to deal with, let's say, one of those trolls that might be on Twitter or Facebook when it comes to like COVID or racial issues? Have you had to personally deal with backlash from a story because you can still be right, but to them you can still be wrong?
Yeah, yeah. No, I haven't had it yet. I mean, I've had people like randomly message me, like, F you, man, stuff like that, who I have no idea like why, but I've never had anyone, challenge me on a story. Some people might, message me on Facebook and say like, well, this is that, blah, 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 or they'll comment on our main page of an article that we did. But I've never had that directly targeted towards me. But it does happen. It happens to a lot of our reporters. It mainly happens to a lot of our, veteran reporters that people know for a long time, especially when they're doing like, problem solving, like those in-depth long pieces. Unless the person is like really upset about it or really passionate about that or just kind of in a bad mood, sometimes it really doesn't really happen too much, at least to me, at least.
Do you have any advice for viewers or readers when they're looking at any of the articles that maybe not you yourself put out there, but when it comes to information that's out there in general, do you have any advice for them so that way they can know and they can be sure that they're getting the most accurate information they could possibly get and it's coming from a trusted source?
Yeah, the best advice I can give is, sometimes it comes down to just using common sense a little bit, because the bigger thing is if you see an article and it's just blatantly outrageous, first off, if it has an outrageous headline, that should catch your attention. Like, okay, what am I looking at? Second thing should be, for me, if I'm on Facebook or social media and I see something pop up like that, I'm gonna always see, okay, is it from CNN? Is it from CBS, ABC? What's the other one? NBC News? Is it from Washington Post? The big name organizations, New York Post, Huffington Post, like I mentioned, Washington Post, the big major networks. If it's not from one of them, then you need to distribute, okay, is this from a local news outlet or something like that? And if you don't know, or if you're questioning it, just do a simple Google. Sometimes I'm like if I see something on Facebook and I'm like, huh, wait a minute. Or if my friends tell me something, first thing I'll say is, okay, let me type in Google CNN COVID vaccine. Boom, search it and see what they got to say, or CBS or any of those things, and kind of just look at those articles and see what they have written. Or maybe if it's something to deal with that, like if it's, for example, the vaccine, or if you're worried about the booster shot, or worried about, does the Johnson & Johnson have this much effect as the other two? So one thing you can do is, hey, go to the CDC's website, CDC vaccine boost. They have all that information there. Those are just examples, though. But I mean, whatever subject you're dealing with, it's best just to know where you're getting the information from. If it's from Yahoo, ESPN, or something like that, or if it's sports related, NFL.com, NBA, obviously, those are trusted sources, but if you're getting it from like, oh, like just a random headline reads from basketballstar.org, Kyrie Irving retires today, some people might pick that up and share it, and I've seen some people share articles from 3 years ago and it's some crazy headline, it's like, oh my God, Kevin Durant broke his leg. He's in the hospital. I'm like, that didn't happen really, but if we use an example, they're like, okay, but if you click on the article, taking the time, hey, this is from 2018. This is not right now. I can't tell you how many times I've seen that happen, and people actually believe it. That's the crazy thing. And so, the biggest thing is just checking the date, checking the source. You know who the big name outlets are. You know who the trusted sources are. So just make sure you're double checking it. And if you really don't know, when in doubt, Google.
And thank you for that bit of information. I'm pretty sure it'll go far for a lot of people. And we get ready to wind things down. A few more questions for you.
The
I've
time
seen
went by
that you
quick.
Yeah, time has been flying, man. Definitely wanted to ask this question. I've seen you gotten the chance to go back to our alma mater, VCU. You've worked with Colleen, talked to some of her students. What is that like for you, getting a chance to be on the other side now, not being taught, but being able to do some teaching yourself a little bit?
It's been really awesome for me. Just the fact that to know that, wow, it's so crazy that I was there, 6 years ago. And that's something I always thought was amazing, because when I was in their seats, the seats that the students are in now, I remember students or professionals coming in talking to us, hey, we graduated a couple years ago, blah, blah, blah. And I always thought it was so amazing. I thought the guys that came in, the girls and guys that came in were just like, wow, they're so elite. I had to get to their level. But just to be able to be in the position now, just a few years later, is really amazing, because mentoring is pretty fun to me. I enjoy it. I never thought I'd be, interested in mentoring, but when it comes like MMJ, when it comes like talking about the news, how camera works, how we shoot stuff, I get really invested in it, and I can talk for days about it. So for me, it's just it's surreal, but it's such a rewarding feeling, Even if some of the kids don't really care or not paying attention, I know there's at least one of them in the class that are. But every time that I went, most of the kids are really responsive. Everyone seems to enjoy it. They always thank me for coming. So it's been a joy.
You've been at CBS6 now almost 3 years. You've been in the business now almost 6 years now. Do you plan on making Richmond your longtime home, or is there a move out there that you might be willing to make in the future? I know at one point, I remember this when you back at VCU, you said your goal was to be the host of Good Morning America. Is that still in the cards?
That is still in the cards. If, like I said, the good Lord has it in my plan for my life, then I am certainly all for it. I would love to stay in Richmond my entire life. It's home, man. I've been here in Virginia for 28 years, my entire life. But it's just, for me, it's like I want to see if I can get to that level. I would love to settle down in Richmond, but I don't want to go my whole life like, dang, I wonder if I could have made it, So, I don't know, when that time will be where I'll get there or when I'll leave. But, like I say, if the good Lord allows me to make it there, shoot, I'm all for it. But if not, if he keeps me here in Richmond for another 5 years, then that's fine too. I kind of just got to see, pray and see where he guides me in all this. So, but yeah, GMA, host GMA at the network level would be awesome.
So you're basically going after Michael Strahan.
Maybe. I don't want, if he watches this or hears this, I don't want him to think I'm coming after him. But everyone always asks, "Oh, you're gonna take Michael Strahan's spot?" I'm like, I don't know.
Well, the man has enough jobs, so if he does one less job, he'll be just fine. I'm pretty sure of that. Plus, he has his football money that he can still bounce back on. I'm pretty sure. So, definitely want to do some quick hitter questions for you. People that you looked up to when you were younger. I know you talked a little bit about 106 and part the crew on there, but who are some other people that you looked up to in the media world?
Yeah, it's a great question. Oh, well, first off, outside of the media world, my parents, I looked up to both of them. In the media world, let's see. I definitely looked up to Lester Holt. Lester Holt is rather, I should say, is a well-polished guy. I really like the way he carries himself. He's really strong. David Muir, and even one of my mentors right now, Chris Thomas. He used to be an anchor at Channel 12 when I was in school, and I kind of connected with him when I was at VCU, and he's really been a person that I looked up to as far as how he carries himself in the media world. But those are some of the main people.
Favorite interview you have done and person that you want to interview in the future?
Great question. Let's see. My favorite interview. Oh man, that's tough. You put me on the spot. I can't think off the top of my head favorite interview, but if I had to interview somebody, I'd love to sit down with Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David, creators
Oh,
of Seinfeld. That's
I
my
was
favorite
gonna
show.
ask favorite TV show, but I think we just cracked the code on that.
Seinfeld by far. Seinfeld and then King of Queens.
Oh wow, okay. Favorite movie?
Favorite movie. Oh goodness. I probably had to say Jingle All the Way, Christmas movie with Sinbad and Arnold Schwarzenegger. If you never heard of it, I recommend you guys go watch it. It's an old. It's about a '90s movie.
Well, we're coming up on the holiday season, so hey, you just gave people an idea of something to maybe watch with the fireplace humming. Also, definitely want to ask this question. I know you're an NBA fan, right?
Oh yeah.
NBA season is where just getting things going. Who's your favorite NBA team, and who do you have winning the chip this season?
So I do not have a favorite team right
Favorite
now.
player?
I'm a LeBron James, my favorite player. I'm not crazy about the Lakers though. I like Kobe when he was at the Lakers, but let's see. Winning the NBA season this year, that's a good question. I'm gonna have if the Lakers can stay healthy, I had them coming out the West, and for some reason I don't think Brooklyn's gonna do it. I think I'm gonna say either the Heat might come out of the East. The Heat. I think it's gonna be Lakers and the Heat maybe, and LA gonna take it all.
That's a rematch of the bubble finals. I'm just happy you didn't say Philadelphia because they got too much crap
Oh
going
yeah.
on. They
And
got too much.
The Nets could pull it off, but they got the Kyrie stuff going on, and they usually can't stay healthy during the season. None of their players can stay healthy, but if they can stay healthy and Kyrie can play, they might have a shot.
Gotcha. Well, definitely gonna be a fun season. My last question is for you, and you got to help me with the answer. Name someone you think would be a good guest on this podcast, but you got to be the plug for it.
I gotta be the plug for it. Let's see. Are we keeping it in the media world or just anybody?
It can be anybody, someone you know, someone you work with, maybe you reach someone that's out there. But like I said, you got to be the plug.
Oh, so this is on record. It got to be the plug.
Yeah. The name of this podcast is on record. Everything you say is on record.
On record. That's right. Let's say. I think you should really do my buddy. He's a sportscaster in DC now. I know you know him, Alex Flum.
Yeah.
I think you should talk to Alex. He's pretty good. He's a hard worker too.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of his stuff. He definitely doing his thing. He was also a co-worker with you in Harrisonburg, correct?
Oh yeah. We go way back. Talking about it, he just texted me earlier today, and we supposed to try to get lunch tomorrow. So I think he's coming down to Richmond.
Okay. Well, like you said, you got to be the plug.
I will. Oh, we want me to say it right now?
Huh?
You want me to say the plug right now?
I mean, I'm just saying, if you can reach out, be the middleman.
Oh yeah. I get him for you.
Gotcha. Well, Matthew, it's definitely been a pleasure getting a chance to talk with you today. Best of luck to you in the work that you do with CBS 6 and beyond, because I know you definitely can go beyond Richmond with what you're doing. So it's been a pleasure getting a chance to see you succeed in your world, and hopefully wish you all the best.
Appreciate it, sir, and I appreciate you taking the time to have me. It's been fun.